I first learned about Rachel Carson from my dad. I have a really clear memory of this. I was a little girl, about 10 or 11 years old. I was helping my dad in the garden. We lived on a farm. My dad was a farmer and a gardener. And on this particular day, a neighbor and friend had come over and they got in an argument. This friend was a salesman for a company that sold agricultural chemicals, and he was insisting to my dad that there was a wonderful chemical that he should be using, and my dad said absolutely not. He was never going to use it again. And then he began explaining how this poison that we put on our crops is eaten by the insects, and they are eaten by the birds, and it poisons the birds, and it moves all throughout the environment, and it gets into the birds' eggs and their babies and everything else. And I was just listening to my dad, whose understanding of the world had been greatly expanded, and thus was expanding mine. And when the neighbor said, "Well, how do you know all this?" my dad said, well, there was this lady who wrote a book. And that really blew my mind, that my dad's whole vision of the world had been changed by a lady who wrote a book. I wanted to read that book. And of course I did a few years later. And it also opened my mind to a whole lot of things about how the world works. Rachel Carson changed my life in so many ways. Most obviously, in the same way that she changed all of our lives, because I've grown up and lived in a world and in a country that has an environmental protection agency, that has banned DDT, that takes seriously the threats of agricultural chemicals that don't stay where we put them. And so that, of course, is hugely important, but it's also hugely important to me that as a little girl, I saw my father's life changed and his actions changed by a lady who wrote a book.